John, great to have you down here, following in the footsteps of Super Mac and Steve Howie. And let's do what we always do with the lads. We'll do 45 minutes where we look back at John's time at the club as a player, and then have a quick 5-minute break, and then go on to what's going on at Newcastle United now. And John, I think the last time we did talking, God, I'm looking forward to the second half.
Last time we did talking, you were here.
Dropped out, definitely with all the stress of Mike Ashley. But going back to the 80s, mate, and your arrival at Newcastle, tell us about
that. I was at Preston. I got a phone call from Arthur Cox asking us to come up here. And basically it was, look, there's something big in the pipeline, he said, but we need you to sign first before we can get this other deal done. And not a lot of people know this, so basically I signed a week before Kevin did. Now if I hadn't signed, Kevin wouldn't have signed. Don't laugh, I'm being serious. So I know Kevin gets all the plaudits for everything that he did as a player and a manager, but if it hadn't have been for me, it would never have fucking happened in the first place. No, I'm only kidding.
A big cheer for John Anderson!
But yeah, I mean, got a call off Coxie saying, look, will you come up? And I have to say that I thought Newcastle. Because every time I played up here, because I was a kid at West Brom, went to West Brom as a 15-year-old, and the old Central League days, the reserve days, for whatever reason, it always seemed to fall that when we played reserve games up here, it was always in December or January, and it was always dark, bleak, snowing, lashing rain, and you never seen the best in Newcastle. And I thought, oh well, and so Coxie offered us a 2-year deal. And then Kevin arrived and everything kicked off. Terry Mack arrived. Peter Waddle. It was phenomenal. The first season was that Kevin was here was really strange actually, because you were playing with somebody who'd won everything there was to win in the game. You know, he'd gone to Germany and been an instant success over there. Did what he did at Liverpool. European Player of the Year. Everybody was in awe of him. And there was a lot of local lads on the side back then as well. You know, Kevin Carr was in goal, Kenny Bonesy played right back, Peter Haddock was there, Stevie Carney, Lord of Mercy on him, was there, John Truick, obviously Mick Martin. But you know, a lot of local boys and just struggled with a confidence thing because you weren't too sure what way Kevin would be. And he was phenomenal, he was brilliant, he was great with everybody. And obviously the second year we then got promoted, and that was a season that Kevin, Chris Waddle and Peter Beasley were just on a different level. They scored goals for fun, they were brilliant.
Tell us about Coxie. What was he like as a manager? Was he, back in the day we used to think of him as a bit of a sergeant major type. Was he like that? Oh,
absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I still speak to the gaffer. You know. Not once a month maybe, and this is 40 years ago. I've known Coxie, and in those 40 years, even after playing and keeping in touch and one thing and another, he still never said a decent word to us. he's never ever said anything nice to us. I used to go home and I used to punch the doors and punch the walls and that and go, Jesus Christ, what a bastard. And he used to put his arm around other people, and he'd walk by me in a corridor, wouldn't speak. You know, if you were injured, he wouldn't speak to you. But he was a right sergeant major. And I'll give you, some of the older boys in here might remember, we went to Liverpool in the FA Cup. We played it on a Friday night. Took about 15,000 down Banfield, and they weren't having the best of times, and we were flying in the second division. And we fancied our chances a little bit, and we got absolutely tanked. They beat us 4-0. And Coxie had us into Benwell state-of-the-art training facility it was. Had running water and things like that. And had everybody in on the Saturday morning, and he had individual meetings with everybody, and he had us in. And he had this desk, it was like that. And there was a window there, just like that doorway. And he used to sit over there, and he'd have his feet on the desk. And the chair on this side, he cut the legs off. So you were basically sat on the floor. So he's looking down at you all the time. And he said, "Have you watched the game?" And I went, "No." He says, "I want you to work at home." He says, "I want you to watch it, and I want you to come back in here 7:30 in the morning." And I went, 7:30 in the morning? I said, "That's Sunday." He went, "Yeah, you're a fucking bright boy, ain't you?" Right, okay, so I came back in on the Sunday morning, and he said, "Do you watch the game?" I went, "Yeah." He said, "What do you think?" I said, "I thought they were just on a different level." And he turned around and he went, "You thought they were on a different level?" I went, "Yeah." He says, "Well, we were that fucking bad. You were our best player. Now get out of the office." And that's the way it was with him. He just, I think he was very good at getting the best out of people. He knew players to put an arm around. He knew players to give a kick up the backside to. And as I say, he still treats us now like a player, because 40 years on, he still hasn't said a decent word to us. You ring him up and you go, "Hey, all right?" And you go, "What do you want?" And then he'll talk away to you and he'll go, "Right, I'm off, see ya," and he'll just put the phone down. When he went to Derby, he rang us up. My contract was coming to an end up here, and it was a little bit like Mission Impossible. When they used to play that cassette in Mission Impossible, this tape will self-destruct in 5 seconds. And the missus goes, "It's Coxie on the phone." And I went, "Coxie's on the phone?" And I went, "Must be mistaken." And I went, "Hello?" And he went, "Hello." And then there was silence, and he went, "Contract's up the end of the year?" I went, "Yeah." "Don't sign anything. I'll be back in touch." And the phone went dead. And that was it.
Did he get back in touch?
He did actually, but I'd already signed a contract, and he gave us the biggest bollocking ever.
I think a lot of us were scratching our heads when, in that first season as well, Newcastle had another striker, and he was banging in goals, and he ended up going to sign for what ended up being our promotion rival, Sheffield Wednesday, Imre Varadi. What happened with Imre Varadi at Newcastle?
He was unbelievably quick, but the lads named him Bungalow because he had nothing up top. So that was Imre's nickname. It was Bungalow. The thing with Ray was, because he was so quick, everything had to go long. It went in behind so he could chase it and get himself in on goal that way. And then Kevin came, and Kevin wanted to play a different way. Kevin came short and got it and played through midfield, and Peter then arrived as well, and Peter and Kevin were a better foil. They were on the same wavelength, where Ray and Kevin were on different wavelengths. The different mindsets on the way the game would be played, but his goals per game ratio was unbelievable. He scored an awful lot of goals, but he was exceptionally quick. He was unbelievably quick.
So the promotion season,
yeah.
It was outstanding, wasn't it? And for Newcastle fans at that time, after being in the wilderness for so long, you've already mentioned it. The front three alone, Waddle, Beardsley, Keegan. They just had that knack, didn't they, of scoring goals, and that's what you needed to get out that division at the time.
Yeah, they did. They were phenomenal. You had Davy Mack sat in midfield, little bulldog, got it, gave it, won it back. Terry Mack, Terry Mack was past his best, but he was brilliant. He was a phenomenal footballer. Jeff Clark, Steve Kearney at the back, Bonesy played left back. Kenny 10 stone wet through. Kenny would fight you all day long. He argumentative little sod. But it started, we went to Leeds on the opening day of that season, and always enjoyed playing at Leeds. Atmosphere was always great, always hostile. And they had a left winger called Arthur Graham, and I'm pacing up and down the dressing room about 2:15, 2:20. And Joe Harvey, who was Arthur's assistant, came up. He said, "What's wrong?" He said, "Joe," I said, "this fella," I said, "Arthur Graham," I said, "he's quick. He's got 2 good feet, can go inside, can go outside. I'm not too sure which way to play him." And I thought, with all Joe's knowledge and his history and having played and having managed, he'd know exactly what to do and what to say to us and give us words of wisdom. And he just turned and walked away, and I went, "Well, thanks very much for that." It was basically sorted out yourself. So the bell goes at 2:50, and walking out into the tunnel, I get a tap on the shoulder, and it's Joe, and he goes, "Find out how quick he can limp around the halfway line." So I just looked at him and went, "Oh, right, okay." So with that, Leeds won the toss and decided to kick off, and it was a red hot August day. It was brilliant, and they knocked it straight back to Frank Gray, who knocked it straight up the line to Arthur Graham. Now you've got to remember, this is the first game of the season. Pitch is absolutely immaculate, and I thought it hit a bump, the ball, and it bounced up here, and Arthur Graham started coming, and my studs were there, and he fucking ran straight into them in his chest, picked 6 studs out of his chest. And as back in the day, as you did, because being good sportsmen, you always picked the lads up and helped them up. "You all right, Arthur?" And as I picked them up, I looked to the dugout, and Joe was there with a fag hanging from his mouth, and he just went. We won 1-0, I scored, and never seen Arthur Graham for the rest of the game.
Fantastic.
Tactics, you see, it's all about tactics. Didn't need any of these boards and writing down things and that. No, just got told.
Pick out some highlights from that season. I mean, there was some fantastic
Yeah.
goals. There was some fantastic goals. And I'm just thinking off the top of my head, the 5-0 demolition of Man City, who were on our tails for most of the season.
Yeah, I mean, that was incredible. I mean, there was so many locked out that day, and Alex Williams, their goalkeeper, got man of the match. You know, we beat them 5-0, he got man of the match. The 3 boys up top that day were phenomenal. Wadler got 2, I think Peter got 3. Kevin was just, we buzzed all over the place. The atmosphere was electric. I mean, St James's was totally different to what it is now. Both ends were open, only held 35,000 at the time, but the noise was, you know, it was phenomenal. And that game, you know, as you say, Manchester City, there was ourselves, Man City, Sheffield Wednesday and Chelsea. Carlisle were there for a while as well. You know, everybody was seeing this as whoever won this one would probably end up going up, and we absolutely battered them. We tore them apart. It was brilliant.
You mentioned
The Carlisle one as well, because they came, and again it was over the Easter, and they were going well, and we were winning 1-0, and they got a penalty, and little Alan Shoulder took it, and he missed it. Carsey saved it, threw it straight out. I got it, gave it to Wadler. Wadler took off down the right, crossed it over, and Kevin scored. And from within the space of a minute of it possibly being 1-1, it was 2-0, and we ended up winning 5-1. And it was, yeah, I mean, it's still that long ago, but so many games are so vivid in your mind. I mean, you spoke about Manchester City. You remember going to Main Road? You know, and there was 48,000 at Main Road, and atmosphere was, and we won 2-1 there.
A goal from Wraith.
Yeah, and Kevin's as well, the little ball from Terry Mack. You know, so many highlights. It was one of those seasons where it just seemed to start, and all of a sudden it was finished. You didn't want it to end. You know, you wanted it to keep going, because you were just looking forward to games week in, week out, and it was great. It was a privilege, and you know, to be part of it, and so proud to be a part of it. And you know, still see the lads now, still see Davy Mack, still see Carsey joined the police force, retired, and he still talked. Every time you see boys who played, they just reminisce about that season.
The previous season, of course, Kevin got a bad injury towards the end of the season, which cost us promotion. He got a problem with his eye, and he missed out. And I thought there was going to be a few jitters, but it came to Huddersfield away, didn't it? And it was
it did, because
Keegan was missing.
Yeah, because what happened, the game before that, we went to Cambridge, and Cambridge hadn't won in 20 odd games, so you knew what was coming. The ground only held about 7,000, and there was about 6,000 Geordies in it, and we ended up getting beat 1-0. And honestly, there was a guy, it's very small ground, and this guy bust into the dressing room, and he was absolutely huge, massive, and tears running down his face. And he went, "Yeah, sure, bastard." He says, "You better fucking win next week." And we played Derby at home, and that was the game that Kevin got injured in. We beat them 3-0, I think.
Great header by Kevin.
It was, yeah. And then we went to Huddersfield and took, God, I don't know how many. It was just black and white everywhere. The old Leeds Road ground was unbelievable, and we drew 2-2. Millsy scored.
Yeah.
Davy Mills came in for Kevin, and Millsy scored, and Peter scored, and just incredible. The scenes at the end, just pitch invasion was unbelievable, and nobody could get off the pitch. And then obviously to seal it the way we did against Brighton.
If there was a game to sum up that season, that was it, wasn't it? Because it was a red hot day, just like Leeds was at the start of the season, and Brighton came to town. It was a promotion party, and we got.
Yeah, Jerry Ryan equalised. And you thought, oh, here we go. They're gonna. But yeah, Peter was brilliant that day. He scored that goal, didn't he?
Joe Corrigan.
Yeah. Just slid in, took it off the big centre back, and chipped Joe Corrigan, who was 8'7". 8'7". But it was brilliant. It was a great season. And at the end of it, you thought, could you ever best it? Can you ever better what we've just done? The crowds, the performances, the players, and then a little bit typical Newcastle. Coxey wanted to bring in 3 players, wanted money made available, and as per usual, they went, "No, we can't do that." And Coxey walked.
Yeah, it was a big blow, because you've already mentioned the Liverpool game, the first televised game on BBC when we lost 4-0 in the FA Cup, was the game that Kevin Keegan realised that his playing days were going to be over as well, and in February he announced that he was going to retire. So at the end of the season, we have an Afidazin game against Liverpool, 2-2. Keegan gets the obligatory testimonial goal, flies up into the sky in a helicopter, and then Arthur's on his way as well. So what was the dressing room like after that? It must have been a bit flat. Obviously you're all
it was, because obviously Terry went as well, and all of a sudden your two talisman really, Kevin and Terry, they're gone. The man who organised it all and set it all up, Coxey, he's gone, and you just wondered where the club was going to go, who was going to come in, what was going to happen. Everybody was left in limbo, to be quite honest. And then they brought Jack in, who was totally different. It's hard to put into words what Jack was like. He's phenomenal man, great knowledge of the game. Had set ways, the way that he wanted to play. And if you didn't want to do that, you didn't play. You were out of the team. But he hated the everyday involvement. He wanted to be away shooting and fishing and whatnot. And we'd signed the season before. We'd signed a fullback called Malcolm Brown, who snapped his Achilles. And if Malcolm had been fit, I probably wouldn't have played in that promotion season. I wouldn't have played probably nowhere near as many games as I did. I think I only missed one all season, but Malcolm had this phobia about Jack. It was incredible, and it just shows, this game, it shows how times have changed. And we were going to QPR when they had the plastic pitch, and it was lashing rain, and we were ankle deep in mud at Benwell, preparing for this game. And Willie was first team coach, Willie McFall, and Willie we'd set up this way where Kenny played left back, Malcolm was right back, I played centre back alongside Glenn, and Carsey would throw the ball out to Kenny, who would knock a diagonal ball from left back to outside right. Malcolm would go right back to outside left. So everything's going along nicely, and then Jack appears. He's got his tweed jacket on, he's got his flat cap. There's a couple of guys sat watching us on the touchline, and Jack comes out with a cup of tea, and he says to a guy, "You haven't got a fag, have you?" Jack gives him a fag. So Jack's there with his cup of tea and his fag. And Malcolm, Carsey throws this ball to Malcolm, and Malcolm tops this ball, doesn't get above that height. Well, Jack went off it. "Oh, State," he says, "just fucking lift it. So do it again." So he throws Malcolm, and Malcolm does the same. So Jack puts the cup of tea down, takes his shoes and socks off, and rolls his trousers up to his knees. And he's got the flat cap on, tweed jacket, and you've got to remember the balls back then were different. And Carsey rolls Jack this ball, and Jack fucking pings it barefoot 40 yards. Brilliant. He says to Malcolm, "Do you think you can do that?" Well, Malcolm's white as a sheet now. He's just looking petrified at Jack, and everybody's pissing themselves off. So roll it to Malcolm, and Malcolm tops it again. So Jack says, "Roll it to him again." And Jack goes and stands 10 yards in front of him. And he says, "All I want you to do is lift that ball over my head." Okay. Fucking Malcolm's throwing this bollocks off. So Carsey rolls on the ball, and Malcolm is never going to hit the sweeter ball in all his life. The only problem was, it didn't get above that height. Hit Jack plumb in the bollocks. Now visualise it, flat cap, tweed jacket, trousers up to the knees, and he's on all fours. And that was it. Training session over. We go to QPR. We're 4-0 up at half time. Waddler was unbelievable. He got a hat trick. And we drew 5-5. And if I had went in on a couple of minutes longer, we probably would have got beat. So we all come in afterwards, and Jack had got in before everybody, and he's in the jacks, and you can hear him mumbling away to himself, talking away to himself, and we go, "He's going to go off it here, going to explode." And he must have been watching what he was doing, because when he came back, everybody just started laughing, because he had a huge piss stain all over him. Instead of watching where he was doing, he was spraying it all over the place. And he was unbelievable. I mean, when he got the Irish job, he walked into, we played Wales in Jack's first game, and lad said to me, he said, "What's he like?" And I went, "Well, he's nothing like you'll have ever seen before. He's totally different." So he walks into the dining room where we were having a meeting, names the team, and he's got his flat cap on again, and he's got a Benson and Hedges cigarette packet, and he's got the team wrote down on the back of the paper. And he goes, "Bonner, big lad from Celtic, in goal. Stan Anderson," look at me, called me Stan, right back. Ronnie Moran will play centre. And everybody's going, who the fuck's Ronnie Moran? Well, Ronnie Moran was part of the Liverpool boot room. He was assistant manager to Shankly and that. Billy Whelan will play left back. He meant Ronnie Whelan. Poor Billy Whelan died in the 1958 Munich air crash. Got into midfield and he went, Ian Brady. I'm pleased we didn't have a fucking Hindley or we would have been a big fucking. Got up front, he went, Roger Bourne. He meant John Budgie Bourne, who played at Sunderland. I mean, that's what he was like. He was absolutely useless with names, but he was honorary Irishman because of what he did, and you know, he was just a character, a real character.
He used to have a cheap round in bars in Ireland as well, didn't he?
Cheap round. They call the Irish thick, and I'll tell you why. Jack got called to Ireland by the Irish FA and he didn't have time to get to the bank, so he flew over and he walks into this pub. The barman stands there, mouth open, Jack Chow. And Jack goes, I've got no money. He said, don't be worrying, Jack, you don't need any money in here. He said, there's a point. So Jack said, well look, he says, I'll tell you what I'll do. He says, I've got my checkbook, he said. You couldn't change me a cheque, could you? And the guy went, Jack, for you, whatever you want, just name it. So Jack wrote out a cheque for £1,000, but then it was punts in Ireland, it wasn't euros then. So gives the guy the cheque for £1,000. Your man gives him £1,000. Jack comes home and he's thinking, a few days later he gets his bank statement and he looks at it and he goes, fucking hell, I don't think he's changed that cheque, you know. So the next time he went home, he walked into the pub, same pub, just out of curiosity, and the guy went, Jack, how are you? Nice to see you. There's a pint. And sure enough, behind the bar, framed, was the cheque for £1,000. So Jack walked out of the pub, and he walked about 50 yards up the road into another pub, and he went, couldn't fucking change me a cheque, could you? He made about 10 grand, because all they kept doing was having the cheques framed and hanging behind the bar.
Brilliant stuff, brilliant. Jack Charlton, what a legend. Obviously, where legends came thick and fast in that period. Chris Waddle went off to Spurs, but we had somebody coming through at the club who was going to become a bigger legend in 1990, the best player in the world, and that was Gaza. And you were lucky enough to see the early days of Gaza.
He was phenomenal. I mean, Beardsley was an incredible player. Waddle, I don't think Waddle ever got the recognition that he deserved, because for me, Waddle was an incredible player. All you had to do was go out to Marseille when we played Marseille, when Drogba did it. He idolised out there, really idolised. But Gaza was probably the most naturally gifted player I've ever seen, and I'm convinced that he hadn't picked that injury up, he would have went on to be the best player in the world. But he was. The kids used to come and train during the school holidays and that, and if you finish training and you go and watch these kids, and there was this little fat kid. I mean, and he was little, and everybody's going, look at the little fat guy. And then all of a sudden he got the ball, and you went, Jesus Christ. And even from a young age, you knew he was going to be a phenomenal player. But he had it all. But he was, obviously he had his demons as well. But he was, if Gaza couldn't do you a good turn, he definitely wouldn't do you a bad one. He was a phenomenal player. I mean, he was so gifted. hyper, you know, live nervous energy. We went to Southampton. Willie was manager, and for whatever reason, Willie decided to name the team on the Friday night. He usually did it on the Saturday morning when we had a team meeting, and Gaza was in the team. So we have something to eat, and we go to bed, and I'm rooming with Bonesy, Kenny. We watch our videos then, and Kenny makes us a cup of tea, and he kisses us goodnight and tucks us in and makes sure we're alright. So about midnight there's a knock on the door, and I'm shouting, Bonesy, Kenny. Kenny doesn't hear it. And I open the door, and there's Gaza standing. I'm there standing there bollock naked, and he's got this fire extinguisher. He's got this foam fire extinguisher, and he just fucking sets it off, and I'm just covered from head to toe in foam. I'm running down the corridor, and Glenn comes out, and Glenn starts laughing, and I'm going, it's not fucking funny, I'm going to kill him. And he went, look, I'll look after him, I'll look after him. So I get back, have a shower, get into bed. About 3 o'clock in the morning, fire alarm goes off. Gaza had set the fire alarm, so everybody's out in this car park, and Gaza's running between people. He thought it was hilarious. We didn't get back in till 5 o'clock. We're playing Southampton 3 o'clock on the Saturday. We get to the old Dell, and I think it must have been Commonwealth Games or Olympics, I'm not really sure, but they had flags marked out as a track, right? So this guy is running, girls running around, and Gaza sets his sights on this big guy, huge guy, and he runs over to him and he goes, "Oi, you and me, round here, fiver." The guy looks at him and goes, huh? He said, "You and me, round here, fiver." The guy went, all right. So he gets one of the stewards, Gaza, and he went, "We're going to do it right. Hands and knees, on your marks, get set." And he says to the guy with the orange jacket on, "You started, on your marks, get set." So they get down, on your marks, get set, go. This guy takes off, and Gaza goes, "Fucking hell. He should run in the Olympics, him." It was fucking Roger Black. we went to Dublin. We went to Dublin and played a testimonial in Dublin, and we went nightclubbing afterwards. And Gaza was a great snooker player. Loved the snooker. He used to go to Spot White. All the Chinese boys used to go there. And Gaza had played him for a fiver. And he'd let them win. Because he was a really good snooker player. And they go, "You want to play again? £5?" And Gaza go, "All right, go on." So Gaza would lose about 15 quid and go, "Look it, fiver." We looked it. I said, "Do you want to play for 50 quid? But the Chinese love a gamble." So they go, "Yes, we play for 50 quid. And then Gaza go bang, 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 break a 40 and that'll be it. Take the money and go. But his passion was snooker. He loved snooker. We're in this nightclub in Dublin. And Gaza's running around all over the place. He was Pernod and Black he was drinking. So we're all there talking. There was a bar similar to that one there, but in the far corner there was another bar. So everybody's running around. We're at this bar. Gaza's being hyper. Next minute, Jimmy White comes in. And lads go, "Oh, it's Jimmy White." And Gaza straight away goes, "Where?" "At that bar over there." Gaza's gone, "Whoa! Jimmy! Whoa! Fucking Jimmy, man! Jimmy!" And Jimmy White turns round and Gaza goes, 180! Jimmy White. But he was brilliant. He was a diamond. As I say, he's had his demons, but as I say, if he couldn't do you a good turn, he definitely wouldn't do you a bad one. He stole the bus. we went everywhere on the bus, unlike now where they fly everywhere. And again, it was a Southampton trip, and Gaza wasn't even in the first team at the time, and all the apprentices were there packing the bus, putting the skips on and whatnot. And Ken, the bus driver, used to help out. Everybody did that. And the Lees' end, as it was then, you know, they started building it, but they had that park at the back of and you used to come in the main entrance there of Barrack Road. That was the main way in. Well, everybody was in sorting all the gear and that out. And fucking Gaza was 16, and he took the bus and he drove it and put it behind the Lees. And Ken came out the bus driver and he went, "Fucking hell, somebody's pinched the fucking bus." Oh, he was a cracker.
Proper wind-up.
Yeah.
Proper wind-up. He was also quite good at teaching people Geordie, wasn't he?
Oh,
and we're going to talk
Mira.
about Brazilians in the second half, I guess. But we had the first Brazilian, Francisco and then Lima da Silva, Medina.
Yeah. Gaza decided he'd teach Mira how to speak English. Well, I think it was English. It was unbelievable. And we were out this night, and Mira didn't speak English. Gaza looked him, "Mira, see her, she like you. Go speak to her." And Mira goes, and Gaza goes, "Just say, fucky fucky." So Mira walked up to him and he goes, "Fucky fucky?" I'll tell you the story about Mira. Prior to him coming to Newcastle, he played for Brazil against England at Wembley and scored. They played Scotland at Hampden, they beat them 2-0 and they came to Dublin. We played them and beat Liam Brady scored, we beat them 1-0. And Mira played, and I was playing right back, and Ronnie Whelan was playing left back, but he felt his hamstring, so Dave Langan came on and went the right back, and I went the left back. And this ball broke between me and this little Brazilian. I didn't know who it was, and it was 70-30 in his favour. This was back in the day when you could tackle. You know, you didn't get booed for looking at somebody. But this ball broke anyway, and he started to come, and then he stopped, and I kept going. I fucking hit him ball and everything, and he did a Lua somersault and landed flat on his back. Never thought any more of it. A couple of months later, we're at Benwell, and we'd signed this Brazilian, and Jimmy Wallace was his interpreter, and Willie's there, Glenn as skipper has introduced him to everybody. He's going along the line, Kenny, Doblock, Davy Mack, and then he gets to me, and Mira takes a step back, and he says something in Portuguese to Jimmy. I said, "What's the story there?" He went, "Well," he says, "he knows who you are." I went, "Fucking hell, I didn't know I was famous in Brazil." And he says, "You're that dirty Irish bastard that kicked him up a height in Dublin." And he says, he doesn't think you and him are going to get along. He was a great guy, he was a brilliant man.
Somebody you didn't get along with was a World Cup winner, Ozzy Ordelis.
Yeah, Ozzy was a strange individual. I did my ankle prior to the '88 European Championships. I had 5 ops on it and never really recovered from it. And to say me and Ozzy didn't get on was an understatement. I mean, he should have been on the Belgrano when they sank it, and you know. But he was just he was a real strange individual, Ozzy. You know, we didn't see eye to eye. He stopped us having gone to have the fourth operation. I was supposed to go to Cambridge to see a specialist. He put the blocks on that as well. So yeah, but you know, he was here a rough time, to be fair. Yeah. You know, it was a really rough time because the one thing he did do though was he gave a lot of the young boys their opportunities. You know, Blooded Clarkey, Stevie Watson, Lee Makel, Robbie Elliott. You know,
the class of '92
yeah,
from Newcastle.
All them boys. You know, so the Appleby brothers. You know, so he did do some good, and then Jim Smith came in after Ozzy, and felt sorry for Jim because he was real old school. He was a man's man. He said it as it was, and his first game was Wimbledon at home, and he decided we would train at St James's on the Friday, and we did our usual stuff, and then he decided he would finish with a game of shadow play. Your shadow play is basically you don't play against anybody. Everybody's in the position, and it's just about having the feel of the ball, and you knock it around, and one thing and another. And so we kick off, and it goes back into midfield to Davy Mack, knocks it to Glenn, knocks it out wide to Kenny knocks it back inside to Dobler knocks it to me, and I turned to knock it back to Dave Besson. Lurch was in goal, and the sun was in Lurch's eyes, and I didn't look, I just turned and knocked it. And Lurch was in the back of the net looking for a hat to put on. And Jim went, I knew things were bad. He says, but we're not fucking playing anybody, I'm on 1-0 down. I mean, to be fair, we did battle back. Glenn got an equaliser from the corner, so it wasn't too bad.
Finish off on your testimonial, John, because they don't do that anymore. I mean, people like Steve Howie played, 12, 13 years at the club, hasn't got one. Shola, some would say he shouldn't get one, but he did become the Mackham Slayer, didn't get one over 10 years service. But you, mate, you got one, mate, and you deserve it. And I was there, cracking night.
Yeah, it was a great night. I go back to getting that phone call from Coxie, and I didn't know how long I was going to be here. I definitely didn't expect to be here for 10 years. I didn't expect to play the number of games that I played. I thought it would be short and sweet, but it was unbelievable. You know, managers came, managers went. I stayed. Some I fell out with, some I didn't get on with. But respected the majority of them. Had an awful lot of time for them. That's just reminded me about talking about Jim Smith. I had more fallings out with Jim, but he was a great guy. He'd say whatever he said in the dressing room, stay inside the dressing room, and he'd be the first one to then come and buy you a pint. But I got another phone call at home. Mrs. goes, your gaffer on the phone, I'm falling out with Jim again, and he says we've agreed a fee with a club, and we've given you permission to go and talk to this club. All right, and I'd been at Newcastle 9 years then, and he goes, and I went, well, can I ask who the club is? And he goes, it's Sunderland. Oh, fucking great! This is going to go down well. I can see this going well. Dennis Smith was manager of them at the time, so me and the missus went across to Roker Park. But prior to that, when I came off the phone, she said, "Your wife," he says, "What?" He said, "They've agreed a fee with the club and given me permission to go and talk to them." Oh. She went, "Who's the club?" I went, Sunderland. And she went, oh, brilliant. That means we won't have to move house. Oh, you're kidding now. So anyway, we went over and spoke to Dennis, and it never felt right from the moment, you know. And he said, I want you to play centre half. I want you and Gary Bennett be centre backs together. And I went away and thought about it. Came back and said, no. I said, I can't do that. You know, and the money was better. Everything about it was better, to be quite honest. But it just didn't sit right for us. So I got back to St James's, and this was before they put the top tier on the main stand. So as it happened, as I got back to St James's, I'm walking up the steps to the main reception, which it was then. He was at the top of the steps, but Jim Smith, and he's giving it all the rhetoric that managers do. You've never been an ounce of bother, you've been a great lad, you've been a good pro, whatever I've asked of you, and I let him get all the way down to the bottom of the steps, and I got to the top, and I turned around and went, oh, by the way, boss, I'm not going, I'm staying here. And he went, you fucking horrible Irish bastard. You'll never kick another ball from me.
Great stuff. That is the end of the first half. Please put your hands together for John Anderson. We'll have a quick 10-minute break. I've actually got a signed copy of the testimonial programme. We're going to raffle that off now. It's £2 a strip, 3 for a fiver. It's the only raffle we're doing today. So come round and sell those raffle tickets. We'll be back in about 10 minutes. Thanks very much.